I submitted myself for a contest to be a model for this beauty campaign. And I said, you know what, let me just submit myself and see what happens. And I ended up getting out of like thousands of contestants. And I had like my first official photo shoot. And I looked at myself and I was just like, wow, like I could really do this. I just can't wait until I am able to do that full time.
Mm-hmm.
And I know it's hard right now because of the recession, but like part of me is like, there's always going to be a roadblock, and I just have to have the courage to like be uncertain about what's next.
Welcome to the Engineer Podcast. That's engineer with a Jen, because I'm your podcast host, Jen. This is your space to integrate your soul with your STEM career. The purpose of this platform is to teach stressed STEMs how to have self-care, explain all the ways that STEM is spiritual, interview those who've switched from STEM to a more soul-centered career field, and to document my decision in becoming a soul-purpose life coach. Now follow me out of the fog and into your future. Let's listen in. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Engineer Podcast. Today's episode is an interview with my friend Morganne. We met at Cal Poly Pomona together, both graduated in the year 2020 with our civil engineering degrees. We were actually also in the same senior project together. So we had a really, really great conversation about her career journey. And she's actually currently still working as an engineer while also pursuing her desires of creative endeavors such as modeling and video production and direction. So some of the topics that we talk about together are how her upbringing with Jamaican immigrant parents heavily influenced her decision to pursue engineering, and how the pandemic heavily influenced her desire to transition out of it, as well as other experiences such as working for, how she describes, a horrible boss, and a super happenstance, like synchronistic way that modeling ended up becoming a really viable option for her. And so I will say that this conversation kind of comes off as just like two friends chatting about their experiences, career transitions, and, life desires, because I do my best to maintain the interviewer/interviewee dynamic where I'm just asking questions in order to highlight their story. But, because we know each other so well, like she ended up asking me questions, I was answering, and it was more just like a conversation. So join us in it and let's just really connect together, because that's exactly what we do. And I also want to say that while you're listening, if you see so much of yourself in what we discuss and you are seeking the same type of support that we wish we had while we were, going through exactly what we talk about, I would love to be the coach for you. I am accepting applications to work with people, and that application is in the description. It is a completely free call. You just let me know what you're struggling with, your goals and desires, and what you would like as your outcome. We get on a call together and we just discuss the ways that I see a solution and ways that I can support you towards your desires, and decide the best type of coaching container that fits you and your circumstance and your situation. And like, the reason why I love supporting women in STEM, as you know, is because that is my personal life experience. And this is the exact type of community that I know needs this the most. And I purposely became certified to help you listening. And I want nothing more than for you to apply so that I get to help you and you get to get the help that you need. And so I want to invite you to do that. Link is in the show notes. You're also always welcome to DM me on Instagram and chat with me if you have any questions. But why don't we go ahead and jump into the episode? Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining the Engineer Podcast. Today we have Morganne. Morganne, say hello.
Hi.
Yes.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, I'm so happy that you accepted the invite to be a guest. I have loved following you on Instagram. Like, since we graduated, your pictures are amazing, and I can't wait to talk about your whole journey with engineering, modeling, creativity. But we got to start with the basics.
Yeah.
And I think it'd be great if you could just tell us where you are in your engineering career right now.
Mm-hmm. So I graduated. Well, I'm sure you graduated at the same time, right? Like May 2020, somewhere in spring. Yeah, spring 2020. Graduated right in the middle of COVID. Didn't even get a graduation ceremony, so that was really sad.
Mm-hmm.
Was thrown immediately into the job market after that. And my first job out of engineering was not great. I had a terrible boss who was very sexist and misogynistic. And it really warped my view on like engineering in general, because I had never really necessarily fallen in love with engineering, but I figured, you know, maybe with this job, it'll be different than what I studied in school, and I'll just feel differently because I'm in the field now and it's different than being in the classroom. But that was not convincing. That experience with that boss was not convincing at all. And I stayed there for a year because people would always tell me, you know, if you have a job and you don't like it, at least stay a year just to feel it out. And maybe future employers will see that like at least you tried, you know. So I stayed for a year, and now I'm at a different place, which is Fusco Engineering. And I work out of downtown LA, and I work remotely twice a week, and I work three times. Oh, sorry. I work 3 times out of the week remotely and 2 times in the office. And I don't love it. I mean, I feel like this is my second or third try with engineering, and I'm like, is this the way that I want to spend the rest of my life? I don't think so. And I think a lot of it has to do with just like the environment of being around people who, like, one, don't look like me. Like, there's not a lot of Black people in engineering. There's not a lot of women in engineering, and there's definitely not a lot of Black women in engineering. So it's a lot of like feeling awkward and feeling ostracized. But on top of that, like, just like the subject material isn't something that I want to on for the rest of my life either. But yeah, that's where I am right now with engineering, just working, but modeling on the side. I call in sick.
We're gonna get to that for sure. And I resonate so deeply with what you're talking about, because I had known since college that I like engineering wasn't in full alignment. But I kept convincing myself because of those same things. No, you haven't tried the industry. No, like you haven't given it enough. Of course it's hard. Everything's hard. Like you're not meant to like your job. Like just things that I had heard, you know, from society, from parents in general, that makes you invalidate this knowing that you just don't like it.
Right.
And so it sounds like you kind of did the same, where you're like, no, you have to try the industry. It's only your first job. You have to stay there a year. But at the end of the day, regardless of the engineering environment, you're still coming to this conclusion that it's not the best fit.
Right.
Not necessarily that engineering's wrong or there's something wrong with it, but it's just like who you are, like you don't want to be in that environment. And that's enough of a reason.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I know that a big part of your journey in even becoming an engineer was directed from your family and your upbringing. And I would really love for you to dive into how you even got started in engineering and where the origins of it comes from.
So I've always been pretty good at just like problem solving in general. So I think that's the one thing that I clung to when it came to engineering, is that like I'm able to do the work. So that's kind of motivating me to stay, but I don't really love it. But being from the family that I'm from really influenced me to even try it out in the first place, because both of my parents are not from this country. They immigrated from Jamaica, and in our culture, like education is really, really key. Like if you're gonna move to America, you better make sure you do it big, and like you're top this, top that. You better make us proud, you know. A lot is riding on you as like a first generation American in your family. So I felt like I owed it to my parents to do what it is that they wanted to see me do with my life.
Yes.
And, in retrospect, that's really unfair of them. And I can understand where they're coming from and like coming to a new country and wanting to make the best of yourself and your family's lineage. But there comes a time where you have to like put yourself first, no matter what. Yeah, so my dad, he's a computer engineer and my mom is a nurse. So there's a lot of like STEM background there already.
Mhm.
So, and my sister, oh, she studied chemistry in college and she went to an Ivy League. So the pressure was really on me, like make something of myself in the traditional sense.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's what got me into it. And now I'm trying to get out of it.
Yeah, and you know what? That takes a lot of bravery and a lot of courage, especially when it's been rooted in you that like this is what success looks like and it has
Right.
to look this way. And to kind of sway away from that definition, like it can be terrifying, it can be scary, and it takes a lot of courage to like own who you are and not have to mold into what's expected of you.
Absolutely.
And so like a lot of people may look at it as like, oh, we're quitting engineering, but it's like it's coming from such an empowered place of self to actually come to that conclusion and follow through on it.
Right.
Given, our background and stuff. So I know you said your dad's computer engineering and that was originally your possible route, right?
Yes.
So
yeah.
how did it go from computer engineering to civil engineering and then, yeah.
So I came into college as a computer engineering major and I did not like it. I mean, at first, when you come into college, you're just taking GEs anyway. But yeah, but like, I think I had like one computer engineering class and I was like not feeling it. I dropped out. I went to my advisor and I was just like, you got to find something for me. But at the same time, I was talking to my parents about it, like computer engineering isn't for me. And they didn't explicitly say it, but I could read between the lines and they're basically saying like, if you don't major in something that we approve in, then like we are not going to pay for your education. Ooh. So I was like, oh man, I gotta find some middle ground here because like part of me is just like a degree doesn't necessarily ensure that you'll be successful or make a certain amount of money in life, but just with like the ideas and beliefs that I was fed growing up, it was just like, you have to get this degree. This is it. Here I am 18, like I'm still heavily influenced by my parents. I'm still a kid,
Of course.
So I gave in and was just like, fine, like, I'll stick with engineering in general, but can I do this type of engineering? And they said, yeah. So that's what I went with. And yeah, here I am.
Yeah. My parents weren't as like explicit. It wasn't like you have to do lawyer, doctor, engineer, or like it has to look this way. It was more like coming from myself, but the only reason why I was choosing it was because of what I was taught to believe what was correct.
Right.
So it was like I was always in the space of control, but I know that the reason why I desired an engineering degree was coming from the beliefs that I was taught around what was a valid degree and what wasn't.
Right, right.
So I totally understand what you're talking about. Now, I know that you're still currently an engineer and you've been pursuing your creative endeavors, and it kind of started to happen around the pandemic. So I'd love for you to dive into the shift in your mindset around the pandemic towards engineering and how that's led you to what you're doing now, which is modeling.
Right. Okay. So I would say firstly, it would be my first job coming out of college and that being like such a negative experience. That was like strike number one in my brain. Strike number two was January of 2021. I got COVID. So I was like stuck in my bedroom for like 2 weeks, kind of isolating myself from the rest of the family because I had still lived at home at that point.
Yes.
I was isolating myself and really thinking to myself, is this even really what I want? Like the way that COVID came out of nowhere, Nothing is certain, graduation got taken away from me. Like nothing is certain in life. I got to make the most of the time that I have. So I
Mhm.
sat and I sat with my feelings and thought about like what it is I really want in this life. So I created an Instagram account. I had one before, but now it's just like something that I use for like looking at memes and stuff. It's not something that I use to connect with people.
Yeah.
But I purposefully made a new Instagram account for my modeling. And I literally set up a sheet in my room to like take digitals, which are basically just plain pictures of yourself for modeling agencies and just people who are looking for models so they can see what you look like naturally with no makeup, plain clothing. I literally had like a mini photo shoot to myself in my little COVID room. And I posted them on my Instagram. And I started just like looking at different modeling accounts, and I downloaded an app called, what was it called again? It was relatively new around COVID time. Let me see. Clubhouse. Have you heard of Clubhouse?
Oh yeah, I've heard of
Yes.
Clubhouse. Yes.
Yeah. So that was like just new at that time. And
Yes.
I was on that app. I got an invite on that app. And they had a room for like new models and people who are just looking to get into the creative industry. So I would just be listening to that day in and day out of just people who are in the industry and like tips and tricks and stuff like that. And I'm taking notes,
Mhm.
that's changed my life. But yeah, so that was strike number 2. And I think strike number 3 was when I submitted myself for uh, a contest to be a model for this beauty campaign
Yes.
for a smaller makeup company out of, I think she's located in Burbank or Glendale. And I said, you know what, let me just submit myself and see what happens. And I ended up getting out of like thousands of contestants. And I had like my first official photo shoot. And I looked at myself and I was just like, wow, like I could really do this. Like nothing is impossible as long as like you really believe in yourself.
Yes. Oh,
Yeah.
you just gave me the chills. I
Yeah.
remember when you posted those photos and I was
Mm-hmm.
like, wow,
Yeah.
like that
Yeah.
is beautiful. That is amazing. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you anchored this belief of like, okay, this isn't like some fantasy career. Like it can
Right.
be a real, tangible pathway for me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yep.
Oh my goodness. Just to kind of go back a little bit,
Mhm.
how did you, so you said you got COVID and that's when you kind of were like reevaluating, your different endeavors and modeling came into mind and you started this whole new account. Did you
Yeah.
have a connection to modeling prior to that? Like what was your history with it?
I had only had one photo shoot before that at all. And it was just some random dude who hit me up on Instagram because he had his own like streetwear clothing line and he was offering to pay me like $75 just to come down to a studio that he rented and just like take some pictures for him. And yeah, that was the first time I ever did it. And the pictures did not come out good. I didn't like it.
Oh,
So I kind of just like left it alone for a minute. And I was just like, let me revisit this modeling idea sometime later on down the line.
right.
But yeah, there's all, and I'll say that not all shoots are great shoots. And, it takes practice to come good at this. Like this is definitely a skill that you have to have. It's not like you wake up one day and are just like photogenic.
Mhm.
You got to practice your angles, but yeah.
Yeah. How did you know that modeling was a direction you wanted to go though? Like,
Mhm.
um, yeah, like where did the interest with modeling come from? Because I think a lot of people in our position that I've talked to, especially given my
Mhm.
podcast that I'm super verbal about my journey as well with not liking engineering, I get a lot of people and I talk about this so much with others. One of the questions that comes through a lot for people is like, okay, I'm not liking engineering, but I don't know what to even do after that or instead of that. Like
Right.
they haven't tapped into their interests, their preferences, their desires, their passions, whatever the case is. So sometimes it's like, I'm just going to stay here because
Mhm.
I don't even know what to do next. And
Mhm.
so for me, like, how did you know, like, oh, I'm gonna try modeling specifically.
Right, right. Growing up, I would always get complimented on like my facial structure because I do have like defined cheekbones. And I was in like a couple little pageant adjacent things as a kid too, that my mom would put me in. So that's where the seed was planted, you know, people telling me, oh, you're so pretty, you should model, you should model, you should model. And I knew that that's not what I wanted to do with life completely, but I figured that this would be a good segue into like something much bigger. Because I've always been a creative person, but modeling, I didn't think to myself, you know, like, I just want to see myself on this magazine and like, that's it. And that's where I'm going to stop. And that's my goal. And that's it. No, like I want to do more with just my face. I have ideas. I don't want to be in front of the camera all the time, even though it is nice. Like I have something to contribute to the production of a music video or a movie or a TV show or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I recently became certified as a life coach, and I specialized in like soul purpose life coaching. And one of the lessons that we learned is that somebody's purpose is like this overarching kind of statement, which can take the form of multiple careers.
Right.
And what comes through for me is like, it feels like your purpose is to bring beauty into the world, or to bring like, truth or expansion. There's just something in there where like, my purpose is to bring beauty, whether that looks like modeling, whether that looks like being behind the camera and creating something, whether that looks like, so to me, I just hear the statement like, my purpose is beauty, and that can look like so many different avenues.
Absolutely. Yes, you hit it right on the nail.
Yes. So in general, like, how have you been liking the modeling, and what are some of the pivots you've made since you've started, and kind of the direction you see it possibly growing or not growing as you're moving forward with that?
Right. So since I started like taking modeling seriously in January of 2021 when I got COVID, I've since been signed to a modeling agency, a smaller modeling agency, nothing too big, this past January. And honestly, I don't like it. I feel like they're wasting my time. I'm literally just waiting for my contract to end at this point. So I feel like I'll have more free range because within my contract, it did state that if I were to model and be offered money, then they would be entitled to like 20% of the paycheck that I receive from the shoot that I shot. Yeah. So I don't feel good about that, knowing that like they're really not putting in the effort to book me for things. And they're gonna get a percentage of some money if I personally take the time to like book a job for myself, you know? So I feel conflicted about that because it's like I want to keep shooting and getting exposure, but if I get money from it, I don't like that like they get a piece of what I put together, when it's like that's their job. That's why I signed with them, is so they could book things for me.
Right. Understood.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So besides modeling, I also work as a production assistant, which is probably less consistent as the modeling jobs that I do, mainly because me working as a production assistant is connected to producers who are putting together a project. It's like if they don't put together a project, then I have nothing to assist with, you know? And that's really cool because I just get to be in that space, even if I don't necessarily have a high responsibility role in putting together a production. I'm definitely just like the person who like moves the boxes or come hold this microphone while this actor is doing this thing, you know? But I'm still appreciative to just be in that space and be taking notes of like how the producer acts and what his role is or what her role is, and how to delegate tasks and all that. I was able to put together my first like photo shoot 2 weeks ago. Yeah, with a few of my friends. And that felt really good because like I was able to be the creative director for that and like find the locations and come up with the whole concept. So yeah, I feel like I'm kind of going down that road of creative production.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I can see that. And I would suggest like the fact that you already said it feels good, like to me, you follow that. Like
Yeah.
if it feels good, you follow that and you would always create really beautiful results from that state of being when you feel good,
Mm-hmm.
because the actions you take when you're just energetically in it, like of course you produce a really good result from that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So another question that I'd love to know is, since you're still doing engineering and these creative, jobs,
Mm-hmm.
what has it been like balancing the two? And do you notice a difference in your energy in the two different spaces?
Yes. Yes. Okay. So in order for me to work these creative jobs,
Mhm.
sometimes I have to call in sick or say I'm taking a vacation. I have to put in my 2 weeks before I take the said vacation so they can approve it. And that can only go on for so long because there's only an allotted amount of vacation time, sick time that I have. So I have to be strategic with it and the types of jobs that I take and if it's worth taking the sick time for it.
Mhm.
Um, but in each separate space, I'm like a totally different person. It's crazy. At work, I'm kind of quiet to myself. I'm just here to do my work. I'm doing the bare minimum so you can get me the paycheck. um, Speaking of which, I took my FE, let's say like a year and a half ago, and did not feel motivated to take it again because it's just like this is not the path that I'm going to take. So why even bother spending the money and time on it?
Oh my God, you're so funny that I don't mean to cut you off, but like
Yeah,
you're
go ahead.
so funny that you say that, because literally I never even took my FE for that exact reason.
Yeah,
I
I'm
was
just like,
like,
this is pointless.
I literally didn't take it because I knew who I am. If I took it and I passed, I would have felt the need to stay and get my PE. And then if
Yes.
I got my PE, it would have been even harder for me to quit, knowing that I had my license and knowing that I had I had already invested and done all this work to get something only to stop there. Like, no, you get
Yes.
your PE to progress as an engineer.
Right,
Like,
right.
in my mind, I was like, I know that if I were to be a PE, I would feel that much more guilt about leaving. And I already feel such a strong internal issue about leaving engineering as it is. So it'll be
Right.
even harder with the FE, with the PE, like under my belt. So to protect myself from myself, I was like, I'm not going to get these certifications because that'll actually just guilt me into staying longer. And I already have the answer that I don't want to stay here right now.
Exactly. You just took the words right out of my mouth. That's
Like,
exactly
so
how
I
I feel.
get you when you're like, I failed, and I was like, cool, we're
Yeah,
just not gonna
that's
get
fine.
that FB.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
so yeah, keep going. I'm sorry, I cut you.
It's okay. It's okay. But yeah, when I'm in these creative spaces, I am bubbly, I am talkative, I am the person who I know that I am. I am myself, and that feels so good. I just can't wait until I am able to do that full time. And I
Mhm.
know it's hard right now because of the recession, but like part of me is like there's always going to be a roadblock and I just have to have the courage to like be uncertain about what's next in order to be where I really want to be. Get out of my comfort zone, knowing that like my next paycheck's going to come in 2 weeks and it's going to be this amount and that's just going to be that. And yeah, it's just really kind of discouraging with like the creative industry, knowing that a lot of people like are not getting paid on time and like people have bills to pay. So that makes me feel negatively about being a creative full time. But I don't know, something just tells me that if I really put myself out there, it's gonna work.
Yeah.
I'm like waiting to take the leap at this point.
Yes. Yeah. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. Like if you feel safest keeping the engineering job while you get to use it as a way to fund your dreams, like that is a perfectly valid way to end up in that space.
Right.
And you can decide like, okay, I'm going to completely end my engineering role so that I can give all of my time, all of my energy to creativity. I will also have to work on the internal fears and, you know, uncertainty that comes with that. And you get to pick and choose your problems. It's like, do I want to go
Right.
through the problem of staying an engineer and maybe having to work on my energy and my time management, or do I want to work on quitting and like working through the fear of that? Like neither of those are right or wrong. It's just whichever one you could see the best results from yourself.
Right.
So I applaud you.
Thank you. Thank you. And I applaud you as well. When did you start becoming a coach?
Oh yeah, so I actually just quit my job like a month ago.
Congratulations. Oh my yes, yes.
I love that we congratulate each other about these
Yes.
things. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So I got my life coaching certification. I graduated from that in May.
Mhm.
And I finished my last engineering day also in May. It was like the end of May, like June, basically.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I've actually been working with other students and young professionals to help them with the stress that they go through as an engineer and to help
Mhm.
them like increase their experience with self-care.
Yes.
So that, and then now that my certification is specifically in soul purpose life coaching and I feel connected to that, I've also been offering sessions with people to anchor into their uniqueness, their gifts, so that they could like see their purpose outside of STEM if they wanted
Yes.
to leave it. And
Mhm.
because that's kind of the process I took myself through.
Right.
Yeah, it's fairly new. It's been about a month and a half, 2 months, something like that. Yeah, so
That's great. I'm so
yeah,
happy for you.
thank
Wow.
you. And that's why we have this podcast, to have these types of conversations. Because if I go
Right.
back, like I think I would have anchored in a stronger sense of confidence in myself or in my ability to leave engineering much sooner if I heard people talking about this exact circumstance that we're talking about.
Right.
And so I couldn't really find it. Like any information I would find about STEM or women in STEM, it was about like empowering women in STEM, retaining women in STEM. Like, how do we give you better internships, better jobs, better skills? And none of it was about the mental health, like, you know, experiences that we're going through. None of it was like about our purpose. None of it was about like our self-care. And it was like, those were the conversations I was craving. And I was like, okay, I'm gonna just have those myself because I'm
Right.
not finding them anywhere.
Yes. Yes.
And then I
Lead the
get to
way.
talk with people like you whose stories,
Yes.
like, I want to hear more about that.
Mhm.
Yeah. So speaking of, you know, our engineering and all of that, does your family know about your creative, you know, pursuits, and have they expressed their opinions towards it?
They know that I model, and I think that that's all they realize that I do because I'll send them pictures from my shoots after they get developed. Um, but they also know that I'm not happy in engineering, but they just kind of brushed off their shoulders like, okay, well, I mean, that's what you're gonna do anyway. So
Gotcha.
it doesn't matter if you're happy or not. This is what you're doing.
Mm. But at least they know.
Right,
Like at
right.
least they know.
Yeah, they're definitely aware. I feel like I feel the weight of their opinions a lot less now that I've moved out of their house.
Mhm.
So, you know, I'm on my own now, which makes it a little more intimidating to like leave the field because it's like I have my own bills to pay. I can't just like go back home and well,
Yeah.
I could, but I don't want to, you know.
Mhm.
I don't want them to influence me and give me like negative ideas about leaving engineering and making me feel guilty for doing so.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but they know. They don't know that like I'm looking to be like a creative director, producer, put together things, be behind the scenes, really delve into that full time.
Mhm.
What about you? How did your family take that?
It's so funny. I actually just put out an episode last week about how I told my parents that I quit.
Oh, I gotta watch that. I'm watching that right after.
I will send that to you.
Yes, please.
But I am living with my parents
Okay.
as I go through this. So
Mhm.
it was definitely really hard to come to this conclusion and to come to this circumstance, but in my mind, I was like, this is worth it. And I do know that they love and support me. And like, I'd rather go through the mental work of being 25, living with my parents, not having my engineering job while pursuing, you know, my life coaching. Like, I rather go through the internal work that comes with that circumstance than forcing myself to stay in engineering. And trust me, like, I was trying. I was forcing myself. I stayed there for 2 years. I stayed in my company for 2 years. Like, I never wanted the conclusion that I don't like it to be true. Like, I tried to convince myself for so long, like, no, it's going to work out. No, you're going to stay. Like, no, here's all the reasons why, like, you can't quit. And once I actually did, and I gave myself the permission to move on, like, the level of peace I felt in my body, like, I just knew it was the right answer. Like, I just knew. So yeah, it's all pretty new. My family definitely, like, they knew that I wasn't liking it. It shouldn't have come to a surprise that I came to this conclusion, but it still was a little bit of a surprise for them, I think, because I didn't tell them that I was thinking of quitting. I just informed them once I already did.
Right.
They were
And
like,
sometimes you have to do it that way, you know?
yes, because again, like, I was protecting myself. I was like, I know that if I tell you I'm thinking of quitting, like, you're going to question me, and your questions are going to put doubt in me, and then I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And I don't want to stay out of fear. Like, and like, not even just for myself, but for my own company's sake. Like, they deserve an engineer that wants to be there and not themselves to stay. Like, how good of a job can I even do if that's the state of mind I'm in for you? You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, and it was really beautiful because once I came to that conclusion, and I started telling people at my job and within my family that this is the direction I'm going, that I've already started working with clients and I'm using my certification, and I'm still using my engineering degree because the people that I work with, they're women in STEM. Because that's the background I have, and that's the background that I talk about. And so the women that are attracted to working with me are the ones who've gone through similar situations. And so I'm like, I'm not wasting my degree. I'm still using it, just in a way that no one ever thought.
Right, because this is a unique experience, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Which brings me to a question for you. Like, how do you see your engineering mind playing out in your creative endeavors? Like, I'll give you an example. Like, as I'm going through my certification and as I'm working with clients, there's so much of who I am and how I think that was part of my engineering, like, experience that directly led me to life coaching. Like, I was really stressed out. I did not take care of myself. I had no life balance. And because I went through that, I now have become a coach to help people going through that exact situation. So yeah, I'm just curious to know, like, how do you see your STEM background showing up in this other area, or if it doesn't, I don't know, but yeah.
I feel like sometimes it does, mainly when it comes to like being organized, and time management is a big thing too. You know, when you have a certain amount of time to do this task for a project and another task for another project, and a bunch of people are asking you questions, and being able to kind of untangle your mind and be able to communicate with people in such a way that kind of gets the job done. Other than that, I don't really see a lot of overlap, honestly.
And something that I love to ask everyone, just because I am a very spiritual person, because you said spirit, like, what has your relationship been with spirit, with intuition, with, like, has that played a role at all in the thoughts that you've had towards your career changes, in the beliefs that you've had? I'd like to know if there is a relationship to that has influenced this path so far.
Right, absolutely. So like, for the longest time, when I first started working full-time in engineering, I would literally wake up in the morning and just like instantly feel anxious, and like instantly, like, I would just like feel tense in my body, just like going to work and like being at work, and coming home just tense all the time. Like even now today, I still have knots in my neck from like being hunched over at the computer all the time. Like that's such, I was such in a negative space all the time. And sometimes I feel like I still am because I'm still working in engineering, but less so now because my boss isn't crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when I'm doing these creative things, like at the end of the day, I will be like exhausted, but just so ecstatic and happy, and I feel loose and just I could go on for hours, you know. Knowing that I did something that made me genuinely happy. Um, for example, like for being a production assistant, I have to sometimes be like the first person on set and the last one to leave because I'm the one who's setting everything up and then taking everything down after everybody's done their thing. And just like carrying heavy stuff in like 100-degree weather because you know it gets hot in the summertime in LA. Exhausted at the end of the day, but I'm just like beaming and my face hurts because like I didn't notice that I was just like smiling all day because I'm just happy to be in that space versus being at the engineering job. Like I come home and my back hurts and I just want to sleep.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, I love that awareness of your body because
Yes.
truly, like, when does your body feel contractive and small and tight, like in engineering? And when is it expansive and just like abundant and like super happy outside of engineering? Like
Yes.
that in itself is a sign to listen to. But I know that we've been taught like, oh, you can't make decisions from your emotions. You can't make decisions from your body. It has to make sense to the mind. And we can like convince ourselves like, no, you have to stay in engineering, even though all the signs are like, your body doesn't want to be here.
Right. Like, listen, I think there's a book that's called The Body Keeps Score, right?
Yeah.
I've been meaning to read that, but yeah, listen to your body. Absolutely.
Yes. Because I know me too, like, it was so obvious to me that like even though mentally I was convincing myself to stay, like my body was not in it at all. Like I would literally come home from work, I wouldn't eat, I wouldn't shower, and all I could do was sleep.
Yes.
I just had no energy because I was using every ounce that I had just to show up. I wasn't even doing a good job.
Right.
I wasn't even doing a good job. I was just showing up, like just for me to be there. Like took everything out of me and I wasn't doing a great job. And it was like, who is this helping? Like it's not helping me, it's not helping them. I'm coming home and just knocking out only to wake up and do it again tomorrow. Like there's so many signs here that like I really want to believe and see and anchor into. And I think that's part of what led me to like actually understand like, okay, you can't force yourself anymore. Your body's done.
Yeah. I remember thinking to myself too, that like, I feel like I'm gonna die early because I'm at this job. I really felt like I was dying. And I knew that like I had to get out of there. And I know that I'm gonna have to get out of this space soon. But and it's not as hostile as my last environment, but like that stuff like that, like really, I really feel like that leads you into an early grave, being in spaces. That's so underestimated.
Yeah, because you're just stressed all the time, and stress is known as like the silent killer, like putting your stress, like it's not just mental. Like people say, oh, mental health, like anxiety, depression, it is so physical. Like you get heart palpitations, like you get knots in your muscles, like you get, some people have like IBS syndrome from anxiety. Like your mental experience directly leads to your body's experience, and it is so holistic. So I could totally see that if you're under this like stress all the time, that it could totally lead to like disruptions in your health. And then like an early death. And I know that sounds so dramatic, but but like, no, I see the correlation.
It's valid.
You already feel that after what, a year, 2? Like, what is your body gonna feel like after 5, 10, 20?
Yeah. It's scary.
Yeah. So I know there was a part of me that thought, like when I was thinking of possibly staying, possibly leaving, there was a part of me that thought like, okay, instead of changing who I am to fit this environment, should I just be more of myself and show my environment like a new way of being, a new way of thinking? And like, should I try to influence a change in STEM rather than saying STEM is what it is and I don't like it, so I'm going to leave? Like, that was part of what I had, like a lot of internal conflict before I quit. And that was
Yeah.
one of the thoughts I had. I was like, okay, should I stay and offer who I am and influence and change the environment? Or should I just accept the environment as it is and like, I don't like it, so I'm going to leave? I don't know if that's ever been a thought.
Yeah, I felt the same way. Yeah, absolutely. Thinking like, oh, should I like be the first? Should I be the pioneer, the trailblazer for this? Or should I just step away from it completely? I think it comes down to just knowing that it all doesn't fall on you. Like you alone can't change like a whole environment at once, I guess. Like it's a group effort, you know? And if
Yeah.
everybody's not somewhat along for the ride, then it makes it really difficult. And then it really comes down to like, is this really your passion enough for you to put in that much effort to help make that change? Which the answer for that for me was no. Like, I'm not even passionate enough to change that environment. Like, I don't care about this environment. That's to go. My happiness comes first. All power to the young girls who like really want to do engineering. And I hope that they find community with other women and other girls who like want to be in engineering. Maybe there could be a woman-owned engineering company someday
Yeah.
that I don't know about. There probably is one, but I literally don't know about it. But it's literally like not typical to hear of that. And for an engineering office to be like mostly women. So I'd like to see that one day. And if they end up doing that, I'd love to like cheer them on, but like to be a part of it, no, because like the material is just not something that I want to involve myself with.
Yeah, I fully see that. And for me, like my job, I had a really great team. I had a really great boss. I had a really great company. At the end of the day, I just didn't like my role.
Right.
Like my
right.
responsibility. I didn't like the work.
Yeah.
And for me, it was like actually really clear, like the fact that like my environment was fine, but that I didn't like what I was doing, that actually gave me the clarity to see like, oh, you just don't like engineering. Like it's not, because I know for you, you had this moment where you're like, is it that I don't like engineering, or is it just that I have a bad boss? You know?
Right.
But now I have to try engineering again, just somewhere else.
Yeah.
You know? So I did have this like clarity where it was like, oh, it's not my boss, it's not my company, it's the work. So now I know I just don't like engineering.
Right. And growing up, a large part of it also for me was like the social validation that came with being in STEM. Like people definitely put you on a pedestal when they hear that you work in like STEM. And really like, I really feel like anybody could do this. Like it's not rocket science, even though rocket science is technically part of STEM. In particular, like it's not like crazy out of this world to comprehend. I don't know. But yeah, a large part of it was the social validation and my parents wanting to be able to like show off their kids and be like, oh, look, my kids do this and that, and wanting to be that for them. But now I'm kind of just taking that back and doing what feels good for me, no matter like who thinks it's cool or not. I think it's cool, so I'm gonna do this.
Yeah, and honestly, like there couldn't be a better time to go after something creative than now.
Yeah.
Like, with the pandemic, like it has shown that like creatives can be so successful. Like I think our parents, like the society they grew up in, they anchored this belief like the only way to be successful is through college, through education, through degrees. So that's the information I'm teaching onto my kids, because I have so much evidence of that being true throughout my life. And then we are now in a society that's completely different than the one that they're teaching us from.
Right.
Like, we now see all this evidence of people on Instagram, people on TikTok, people on YouTube that are thriving from a place of creativity. And our parents, like we have now all this evidence to believe in education is not the only way to success, but they don't yet see that or believe it because they didn't come from that understanding. So like with the pandemic, like online businesses skyrocketed, entrepreneurs skyrocketed. We went through a great resignation where like everybody and their mama quit their job. Like there's so much opportunity at this moment in our life for us to be doing what you're talking about. Like I fully believe that you could do it. Like it's there for you.
Like there's a reason why this idea was planted in your mind. Like you're not thinking about it constantly for no reason.
Yeah. And I'm excited for you. I'm excited to see like where this goes. And I'd love to see when your name's in the credits for something that you helped produce, you know?
Yes.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Thank you.
Yes. And I think you were also touching on too, like a lot of people, their origin with engineering comes from a state of fear. Like it comes from, I need security and I need engineering to give me security, or like I need prestige or I need intelligence because I'm not enough and engineering will give me that. Like I think there's a lot of people that pursue it from that state of mind. So then of course they don't produce something abundant because their origins with it was from fear.
Not from love.
Exactly. So then of course we're not satisfied. And I really hope that like the people that are in STEM can be there because they want to be and because they like it and because they're excited by it. And then the people that are feeling the way that we do, that we can just, we're allowed to detach from it and end up in a different spot. And then STEM can actually be saturated with people who love it instead of a bunch of people like you and I. Like, and the thing is, a majority, at least from the ones I've talked to, are like you and I.
I know, and it's scary because it's just like, ooh, it's scary.
It is, because almost everyone I've talked to, it's like, oh, I'm doing it because I should. I'm doing it because it's security. I'm doing it because like and most of the people I've heard of, it's like, I didn't really choose it, but like I settled for it. Like I'm gonna keep going because I'm scared if I don't. And I haven't really heard anyone describe it like, I absolutely love being here. I want to keep doing it. I'm so excited. I'm energized. I'm healthy. Like I haven't heard anyone describe their engineering experience like that.
Yeah. Girl, you make me want to quit tomorrow.
I'm sorry. I'm not trying to force you to quit.
Oh my gosh. But I feel that 100%. Especially with those longer days when like we have a project due and I'm sitting at my computer for like 10 hours and I've gotten up maybe 3 to 4 times. Insane. Just to drive home and then like immediately like go to sleep and start all over again the next day. Oh my goodness.
I know.
Soon.
I feel you and I hold space for you. And I really do trust that like you've started a really great path, and that even as you've started it, different opportunities have come through.
They have
like anchored this belief that you can do it, and I have like full belief that it'll keep happening that way. Like what were the odds that you just happened to be in that clubhouse room? And like what were the odds that you like actually like won the contest out of thousands of people? So
absolutely. I really feel like this is my destiny to be in this space.
Okay, well, as I think as we close out, I would want to ask you, if there was someone in your same position, what advice, or I guess what advice would you give yourself like a few years ago? or like when you were in the middle of engineering, not liking it, or like when you were thinking of what to do next, like now that you've already kind of started and you're ahead and you look back at that version of yourself, like what do you think she needed to hear at that time? And can you give that advice to anyone else?
I would say to just breathe and also know that you are valid no matter what it is that you choose to do in this life. It's really about your life and your journey and your purpose, and to just not be influenced so much by what people expect from you and what they want your life to look like. This is your life. Like you can do what you want with it. And I probably give her a hug.
Yes, the word that sticks out to me that I really resonate with too, and that I've had to affirm myself is valid.
Yes.
Because that's so true. Like I felt like it was wrong for me not to like engineering, that it was not valid for me to quit. Like, so just validating that you get to move on, like validating that your life gets to look different, validating that like you can feel some negative feelings towards engineering, like all of that's valid. I love that. That's the word that stuck out, because I needed to hear that, because I would validate it. I would be like, no, you're not allowed to not like it. No, you're not allowed to leave. No, you're not allowed to like ruin your like dynamic.
Right. Yeah. I feel that 100%.
So yeah, thank you so much. You really shared yourself, and I absolutely am so grateful that you accepted the invite and, you know, came through with everything that you have. So thank you.
Of course. Thank you for having me. I had a great time, and I hope that I was able to inspire somebody to really pursue their passions with this conversation.
Oh yeah, I believe you have.
Yeah.
And so it is. I hope you're feeling super soulful, STEMmy. Thank you for supporting the Engineer Podcast with your presence today. Be sure to stay connected by subscribing on all the platforms that you listen to, including YouTube now for closed captions, and of course, our Engineer email list. Anyway, I'll see you soon. Bye for now.